My name is Amanda, and at 29 years old, I never dreamed I'd become the mastermind behind my own sister Stephanie's devastating fall. For years, she ruthlessly snatched away every boyfriend I truly cared for, shattering my heart while parading her victories like trophies. Our parents brushed it off as harmless sibling squabbles, but it tore me apart from the inside out. So I struck back with cold, precise vengeance. I set her up with Christopher, and that's when the tides turned forever. Before I plunge into this twisted tale, I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from right now. Drop your spot in the comments below. Smash that like button and hit subscribe if you're hooked on family betrayals and that oh-so-satisfying revenge. Growing up alongside Stephanie felt like being trapped in an endless, unwanted battle royale. Just 3 years my junior, she had this eerie knack for twisting everything to center on her. From the day she entered the world, my parents crowned her the family's golden child. Whatever I owned, she craved. Whatever I accomplished, she had to eclipse. I played the role of the forgiving big sister, rationalizing her antics and clinging to hope that she'd outgrow them someday. Our cozy suburban Chicago home buzzed with unspoken tension, laced with blatant favoritism. When I hit the honor roll, Dad gave a curt nod of approval. But when Stephanie did the same, it sparked a lavish dinner bash. When I snagged second place at the science fair, Mom muttered, "Good job." Yet when Stephanie claimed third the next year, they proudly framed her award. These tiny injustices stacked up like bricks, building a wall of bitterness I fought hard to deny. I kept whispering to myself that it was all in my imagination, that I was too damn sensitive. I drilled into my head that what really counted was our sisterly love. Or at least, that's what I desperately believed until my junior year in high school, when I started seeing Daniel. Daniel was the dream for 16-year-old me. Guitar strumming with those piercing blue eyes full of depth, treating me like I was the only one who mattered. For once I had something sacred, untouched by family chaos or Stephanie's grasp. We'd lose hours chatting about tunes, our wild fantasies of ditching Illinois for California's sun, the futures we sketched in our minds. I was truly deliriously happy, which blinded me to the red flags when I brought him home to meet everyone. I can still picture Stephanie, only 13 then, tossing her hair and cackling way too hard at his quips. She shattered us room to room, inventing reasons to butt in. I caught her grazing his arm mid-chat, but I shoved it down. "She's just a kid," I reasoned. And Daniel? He was all mine, loyal as hell. Mom and Dad pushed me to drag her along on dates. "Take your sister to the movies," Mom urged. "She idolizes you." To prove I was above it all, I caved. Daniel stayed gracious, never griping when she squeezed between us on the sofa or hijacked dinner talk. The stab of betrayal hit like a freight train, totally out of nowhere. It was at Jason Miller's year-end bash. Daniel vanished for drinks, and after 20 agonizing minutes, I hunted him down. There they were in the upstairs hall. Stephanie pinned to the wall, Daniel devouring her with a passion that twisted my gut into knots. Her eyes locked on mine over his shoulder, gleaming with pure, vicious triumph. I'll carry that image to my grave. When I exploded on them, Daniel at least hung his head in shame. "Stephanie?" She just shrugged. "It just happened," she tossed out. Like that erased the wreckage, like it mended my soul. I bolted home, sobbing, and spilled it all to my parents. Their words sliced deeper than the knife itself. "Oh, honey," Mom sighed. "You know how Stephanie gets. She's young, impulsive, no real malice." "Daniel wasn't the one for you anyway," Dad chimed in, with an awkward pat before burying himself in his paper. That night, I wept until I was hollow, not just for Daniel, my first gut-wrenching loss, but for the brutal truth that in our family, my agony always bowed to Stephanie's whims. Even then, I convinced myself it was a fluke, that her youth would fade this poison, that forgiving her was my salvation. God, was I dead wrong. College was my lifeline. I picked Northwestern, distant enough to skip home except for big holidays. Those early months mended my wounds. I forged friends oblivious to my baggage, dove into the campus paper, and clawed back my self-worth. By sophomore year, I emerged reborn, shaped by my own damn decisions, not my sister's shadow. That's when Jake crashed into my world in American Lit class. With his wild dark curls and endless obscure book nods, he pushed my mind like no one else. Our bond bloomed organically over heated coffee debates on Hemingway and all-nighters that melted into raw talks about life and ambitions. For 8 euphoric months, Jake was utterly mine. I shielded him from my family, spinning lies about why he couldn't join for Christmas or breaks. Deep down, I knew exposing him to Stephanie was gambling at all, but Mom's guilt trips wore me down. "Are you embarrassed of us?" she probed on a call. "Why hide this guy?" Like clockwork, the shame hit and I caved, scheduling his visit for an April-long weekend. I prepped obsessively, dropping casual warnings to Jake. "My sister's intense. She craves the spotlight." He chuckled, swore it'd be okay. "I love you," he said. What could go wrong? By then, Stephanie was 20, juggling community college and a boutique gig. She'd blossomed into a stunning, calculated beauty who wielded her allure like a weapon. The second Jake stepped inside, I saw her size him up, eyes sparking with hunger. At dinner, she laser-focused on him, firing smart questions about his classes, his roots, his goals. He lit up, lapping it up. It was Daniel's nightmare replaying, but I wouldn't swallow it quietly this time. That night, I stormed her room. "I see your game, cut it out." She batted those wide, fake innocent eyes. "What, being nice to your boyfriend? Want me to snub him? Friendly's one thing, flirting's another, and you damn well know it." I shot back, voice trembling. She burst out laughing. "Amanda, if you're this paranoid, maybe you're the issue, not me." I stormed out, reeling from the gaslighting, questioning my sanity. Was I imagining ghosts from Daniel's ghost? In the weeks after, Jake's texts exploded, smirking at his screen, stashing it fast when I appeared. He nitpicked me more. "You always cut people off," he snapped once. "Stephanie said she can't get a word in edgewise around you." My gut screamed warnings, but I battled the paranoia. Until that fateful night when Jake ditched his unlocked phone on my desk mid-bathroom break. I'd never been one to pry into someone's privacy, but raw terror shattered my moral code. The chat log with Stephanie stared back at me, endless streams of texts stretching back weeks. "I can't get you out of my head since we met," he'd confessed. "Amanda and I have been drifting apart for ages now." Her reply twisted my insides like a knife. "I've always sensed this electric pull between us, like fate meant for us to cross paths first." When Jake strolled back in, I thrust the phone at him, my hand trembling. He didn't even bother feigning innocence. "There's just this spark with her," he admitted, like that justified the gut punch. "She truly understands me in ways you've never touched." 2 days later, they made it official, sealing my devastation. When I dialed Stephanie through my sobs, her words hit like venomous ice. "Face it, Amanda, you just can't hold a guy's attention. Don't pin that on me." The vicious cycle was crystal clear now, and the blow to my confidence left me in ruins. I started doubting my very core. Was I really that disposable, that effortlessly overshadowed? Did some deep flaw in me doom every man to pick my sister over me? Those tormenting thoughts stalked me relentlessly, driving me to swear off dating for the rest of college. After graduation, I fled to Boston for a marketing gig, stacking miles between me and that toxic nest. The fresh cityscape promised rebirth, and I hurled myself into climbing the career ladder. Slowly, the scars from Jake's stab began to crust over, though they throbbed eternally beneath. At 26, I'd carved out professional success and gathered a tight-knit crew of friends who'd evolved into my real family. It was on the job that Ethan entered my world, a sharp-witted graphic designer teaming up on a massive project. With his clever banter and warm gaze, he chipped away at the fortress I'd erected around my soul. Our bond ignited instantly, fierce and undeniable. We bonded over indie flicks, roamed Boston's ancient streets on lazy weekends, and lost ourselves in endless chats about the profound and the mundane. For the first time post-Jake, I dared to bare my vulnerabilities. I shared snippets of my romantic wreckage, skimming over Stephanie's sabotage. It still burned too hot, too humiliating to lay bare completely. For almost a year, I guarded Ethan from my family's grasp, jetting to Chicago solo for holidays and fabricating reasons he couldn't tag along. But as our love deepened and cohabitation whispers grew, dodging full merger became a losing battle. Thanksgiving felt like the perfect trial run. A quick hit centered on turkey and kin, buffered by crowds and gridiron distractions. I drilled Ethan for weeks, unpacking my tangled history with Stephanie, hinting at dangers without coming off as the resentful sibling. Stephanie and I clash on personal space, I phrased delicately. She can get overly chummy, crossing lines. Ethan gripped my hand tight. Amanda, you're my everything. No force on earth could shift that. I clung to his promise like a lifeline. By then, Stephanie was 26, hustling as an event planner and rooted in our old stomping grounds. As we pulled up to the parents' place, she enveloped us in overzealous embraces, her gaze devouring Ethan with that chilling glint that knotted my gut. She played it cool through dinner, quizzing him on his career with fitting curiosity and sprinkling compliments that towed the line of hospitality without tripping my alarms. It was post-meal, as folks dispersed through the house, that I spied her trapping him in the kitchen, inching invasively close while flashing family snaps on her screen. I witnessed her graze his arm, her laughter tilting her head in that signature siren pose. It was unfolding live, the well-rehearsed dance of temptation she'd honed to deadly precision. That night in our hotel sanctuary, I broached it with forced nonchalance. "Stephanie's really taken a shine to you," I probed, scanning his face like a hawk. Ethan grinned. "She's cool. Not the nightmare you painted. Just tread lightly around her," I cautioned. "She doesn't always honor commitments." His brow furrowed. "Amanda, that's your blood. Maybe your past is clouding your vision, inventing shadows." I fought to buy his words, to stake faith in our bond's unyielding strength against Stephanie's sway. But the shifts crept in over the coming months. Ethan's phone flared with alerts he'd sweat away in haste. He floated ideas of more Chicago trips. He tossed out offhand queries about Stephanie's world, her gigs, her passions. The hammer fell in the most savage strike. Ethan dozed off on my sofa post-dinner, his device humming insistently. As I shifted it to hush the buzz, Stephanie's name flashed accusingly. Defying my every creed on boundaries and loyalty, I punched in his code. What unfolded obliterated me. Layers of exchanges, innocent at first blush but spiraling into forbidden heat. Pics she'd fired off, schemes they'd hatched on how to drop the bomb on me. Fresh texts were scrubbed clean, but the remnants sketched a vivid portrait of deceit. I jolted him awake, device clenched, fury and anguish quaking my tone. "How dare you?" After I bared my scars? Ethan mustered a flicker of remorse, but his defense carved fresh wounds. "Snuck up on me, Amanda." We clicked beyond belief. I battled it, but she's got this magnetic pull. This pull, I echoed in a daze. It's always her pull, right? Once he vanished, I crumpled in my empty flat. The triple treacheries crushed, suffocating me. It transcended losing yet another love. It dawned that this nightmare looped eternally. Stephanie would forever covet my treasures and claim them triumphantly. That no escape or partner vetting could shield me from this exquisite torment. I plunged into a black abyss that poisoned every corner of existence. My job tanked. I ghosted my circle. Therapy unearthed the rotten family roots fueling this hell. But insight didn't dull the blade. Faith in others evaporated. Romance loomed like a rigged snare. I fortified my defenses sky-high, deeming solitude safer than certain doom. For almost 2 years I merely survived, mechanically trudging while armoring against all. The cruelest twist? Stephanie hadn't just poached my loves. She'd assassinated my capacity to love. By 28, I'd mastered dodging kin reunions, Yule with pals, birthdays via postcards and curt rings. For unavoidable summons, my playbook. Tardy arrival, hasty exit, Stephanie chats shallow and clipped. My folks clocked it, naturally. Their brush-off was textbook apathy. "Time to move past this," Mom lectured on a call. "Stephanie's moved on. Why can't you step up and be the bigger person?" My father pressed. Family's family, after all. Those stinging words only amplified my loneliness, proving once more that my heartache would forever play second fiddle to keeping the surface calm. But dodging tactics crumble eventually, and mine shattered completely at my cousin Jessica's wedding. As the cherished only daughter of my mom's adored sister, Jessica's big day was an absolute must. Not just showing up, but diving headfirst into every ritual, from the rehearsal dinner to the Sunday brunch. 3 endless days of inescapable family immersion. No way out. I pulled into the Milwaukee hotel with a rehearsed grin and a ticking mental timer. Just 72 grueling hours to endure. I could tough it out. The rehearsal dinner slid by without a hitch, the crowd letting me skirt any real FaceTime with Stephanie. But at the reception, fate turned vicious. I was planted at the family table, staring straight across at her, glowing in that sapphire dress that mirrored her eyes to perfection. She was single, or so I'd assumed, until she lobbed her grenade mid-chat. "Did I mention I'm dating Michael now?" she tossed to Mom, but her sidelong glance hunted my flinch. Michael, my fleeting but fierce college flame before Jake, the one I'd paraded to the family at that summer barbecue 6 years back. How'd that spark? Mom gushed, thrilled. Stephanie beamed. We linked up on Facebook. Turns out, he never shook off meeting me at that 4th of July bash by the lake house. The table buzz flowed on around me as I sat paralyzed, that old chill seeping through my ribs. It wasn't lingering sparks for Michael that gutted me. It was the endless loop, the merciless pursuit, how she hoarded my exes like prized scalps. Uncle Brad, sloshed on his 3rd drink and blind to the venom beneath, bellowed a laugh. "Stephanie, you've got a real type. Always snagging Amanda's cast-offs, eh?" The whole table exploded in chuckles. Everyone but me. I caught Mom shooting Brad a sharp glare, but nobody stepped up for me. No one called out the barb's cruelty, its razor-sharp truth, the way it carved into my core. I murmured an excuse, striding with forced poise to the hotel restroom, where I bolted into a stall and unleashed the flood of tears. Decades of bottled agony gushed out as I leaned my forehead against the icy metal door. I'd plummeted to my nadir, perched on a toilet in my sparkling gown at my cousin's celebration, sobbing over a sister who'd methodically demolished every love I'd dared to nurture. I lost track of time before the bathroom door creaked open, followed by a soft rap on my stall. "Amanda, is that you in there, sweetheart?" Grandma Rose's voice, tender with worry. At 82, our clan's wise anchor, her mind a steel trap despite her fragile frame. I swiped at my eyes and unlatched the door. One glance at my wrecked face, and she enveloped me in an embrace redolent of Chanel No. 5 and timeless insight. "Come along," she murmured, guiding me through a side exit to a quaint terrace gazing over the hotel's lush gardens. In the crisp night breeze beside the one kin who'd always pierced through the fog to see me true, I spilled it all. The every stab of disloyalty, every brush off, every instance my parents had shrunk my suffering and pardoned Stephanie's sins. Grandma Rose absorbed it silently, her weathered features darkening with dismay. When I wrapped up, she clasped my hands in hers. "I've seen this unfold for years," she confessed. "I should have spoken up ages ago. Why does she keep doing it?" I pleaded, the riddle that had stalked me for over a decade. Grandma Rose exhaled deeply. "Stephanie's always measured herself against you. If you've got something, she convinces herself she must claim it to feel whole. It's never truly about the guys. It's about seizing what's yours. And nobody stops her." I spat, venom lacing my tone. "Exactly," she conceded, her frankness stunning me. "Your folks have fueled this by dodging repercussions. They figured they were preserving harmony, but they've just delayed the inevitable clash." She halted, her gaze locking mine with fierce urgency. "Sometimes, Amanda, folks need a hard fallout to evolve, even those we cherish." Those phrases burrowed deep, sowing a kernel that would sprout into the unforeseen. For the first time, I viewed myself not as Stephanie's eternal prey, but as an agent of change capable of rewriting the script. I flew back to Boston transformed. Rather than fleeing the mess, I dissected it. I devoured tomes on poisonous kin ties and fraternal wars. I delved into narcissistic quirks and the habits of boundary breakers. I uncovered how such souls prey on their nearest, treating bonds as deals, not hearts. Crucially, I grasped that types like Stephanie seldom shift sands facing hefty fallout from their deeds. As long as her ploys scored wins sans real backlash, the vicious wheel would spin forever. The deeper I dug, the starker the truth. Stephanie wouldn't quit solo. She'd keep raiding my loves for the ego boost and spotlight she hungered for. And my parents would perpetuate her, ensnared in their evasion dance, which meant any shift hinged on me igniting it. The puzzle, how? I couldn't leash Stephanie's moves. I couldn't force my parents to draw lines they'd shirked for almost 30 years. But maybe I could engineer a scenario where her antics finally slapped back with fallout she couldn't flirt or finesse away. A setup where she'd taste the sting of treachery firsthand. The scheme coalescing in my brain was a moral minefield. Ethics be damned. It demanded I bend my own codes in ways that churned my stomach. But after endless high-road treks ending in solitude and shards, I craved a detour. I'd scout a guide to flip the script on Stephanie, mirroring her serial heart shreds. Someone to plunge her into betrayal's abyss, the shame of being swapped, the trust's obliteration. And for once in our twisted bond, I'd grip the reins. My plot craved meticulous scouting and flawless rollout. I hunted for a specimen with precise traits. Hot enough to snag her gaze, suave enough to snare her faith, yet core-rotten and scheming enough to ditch her brutally. A mere dose of her poison sans lasting scars. The moral quagmire haunted me fiercely. In my bleakest hours I grilled my soul. Was I stooping to her level? If I engineered her agony on purpose, could vengeance ever be righteous, even post-endless calculated stabs? I grappled with those haunting questions in my therapy sessions, though I never laid out my scheme outright. Instead, I danced around it with what-ifs. Is it twisted to crave someone feeling the exact agony they've dumped on you? I probed my therapist. That's a raw human urge, she answered cautiously. But the real gut check is if chasing it heals you or just breeds fresh wounds. Her insight jolted me, but not enough to scrap the whole thing. No, I drew lines in the sand for my conscience. I wouldn't feed Stephanie to some monster or abuser. I wouldn't trap her in something that scarred her for life. All I aimed for was a sharp, contained dose of the misery she'd flung at me without a second thought time after time. The chance dropped into my lap faster than I'd dared hope, right at a marketing summit in Chicago. I'd flown back to my old turf for the 3-day grind, bunking at a hotel instead of crashing with my folks to preserve what was left of my sanity. On night 2, amid the schmoozing cocktail hour, I crossed paths with Christopher, towering with that meticulously tousled dark hair and threads that screamed money. As regional sales boss for a high-end watch line, he oozed a cocky swagger teetering on smugness, name-dropping stars he'd outfitted and teasing his elite bloodlines. Normally, he'd repulse me, but that evening, I spotted gold in his blatant ego trip. As we bantered, I clocked his roving eyes, forever scouting the crowd for bigger fish or hotter prospects. The offhand scorn he heaped on his exes. How he treated love like a scorecard, not a soul bond. Christopher was my bullseye. Handsome, thriving, slick as oil on top, but rotten to the core. The kind who'd hunt Stephanie down with feral drive. Reel her in hook, line, and sinker, then chuck her aside for the next shiny thrill. In essence, he was her mirror image, just in male form. I poured the evening into reeling him in, cackling at his tales, feigning awe at his flashy bling. When he floated grabbing cocktails at the hotel lounge post-mixer, I leaped at it. Over those sharp martinis, I wove Stephanie in like a master baiter, casual at first, dubbing her the family stunner who always snags her prizes. I watched his intrigue ignite as I sketched her as a bold, magnetic force accustomed to being chased. She sounds intriguing, he murmured, waving for refills. Single. For now, I shot back, lacing in a whiff of judgment. She burns through guys like matches. That sealed it. The hint she'd be a tough keeper flipped her into his ultimate prize, a conquest worth the sweat. By closing time, he'd pried her Instagram from me playing hard to get all the way. Next day I rang Stephanie. Ran into this guy at the conference, could be your vibe? I said, keeping my tone flat as pavement. Christopher, big in luxury sales. You're playing matchmaker? She blurted, shock rippling through. We hadn't swapped sisterly chit-chat in eons. Not quite, I hedged. He grilled me about you after I name-dropped. Bet he'll slide into your DMs. Her curiosity crackled over the line. Spill, what's his deal? Ambitious, bold, drop-dead gorgeous. I leveled honestly, then twisted the knife. But likely not the settling type. That gamble paid off, knowing the unattainable tag would only amp her hunger. Appreciate the tip, she warmed, a fresh glow in her words. The notion that I might be waving the white flag in our silent war, handing her prospects instead of seething, thrilled her to no end. 3 days on, she buzzed me, buzzing with thrill. Christopher hit me up. We're doing dinner Friday. A beat, then rare tact. This cool with you? Totally, I soothed. Why not? Just, our baggage. Water under the bridge, I breezed. Barely know the dude, we just networked. That green light was her launch pad. In the weeks that followed, her updates flooded in. Christopher storming her defenses as I'd foreseen, bombarding her desk with blooms, whisking her to VIP spots, parading her among his shallow crew. She was hooked hard, gushing that he was worlds apart from her past flings. I played the cheerleader, pumping her up while slipping sly cautions she swatted like flies. He jets through romances, I noted one call. When it clicks, she quipped dreamily. Watch your back. Types like him crave the hunt over the hearth. That just fueled her fire to prove she was the exception, the keeper where others crashed, precisely my blueprint. 2 months deep, she dangled a dinner invite with them, dying to flaunt their spark. I bit with feigned zeal, itching to witness my web in action. The swanky eatery Christopher picked scream show-off, with its moody glow and bite-sized pretensions. All through the meal, I dissected their vibe with a cocktail of triumph and dread. He was all polish and focus, but I sniffed the scripted charm, his gaze drifting when she blinked. Those same ploys he tested on me at the summit, now cranked to 11. Stephanie, usually a hawk on folks' facades, was utterly snowed, radiating bliss as she clung to him, erupting in giggles at his every line, gazing with a worship I'd never glimpsed in her. She was, I jolted to realize, tumbling headfirst into real love. Watching them sink, my glee soured into a tangled mess. I'd craved her tasting rejection's venom, sure. But eyeing her so exposed, so utterly duped by a snake I knew inside out, it roused a surprise shield maiden urge. For a split second, I toyed with dropping a bombshell on his sleeves. But then her zinger landed. Amanda's finally upped her guy game, she teased Christopher with a snicker. Her old pics were such snoozes, till they crossed my path. He squirmed with a forced laugh, catching the dig. I flashed a rigid grin, silent as flashbacks surged. Every shattered romance, every backstab, every parental shrug to suck it up. Right then, I doubled down on my vengeance. Stephanie had picked her poison over and over. Now at last, she'd swallow the backlash. Over the next 6 months, I kept a watchful eye from afar as Stephanie's romance with Christopher heated up like a fire I couldn't control. My part morphed from mastermind to silent spectator, letting their twisted bond spin wildly on its own. Through sporadic calls with Stephanie and hushed updates from my parents, I stitched together the nightmare I'd unleashed. Those first 3 months, pure fairy tale bliss, ripped right from her wildest fantasies. Christopher whisked her off to New York for a glamorous weekend, paraded her among minor celebs at flashy industry bashes, and drowned her in lavish gifts that screamed devotion, without ever delivering the real thing. Stephanie, my fiercely independent sister who ditched guys at the first red flag, was utterly hooked. He might be the one, she confided during a rare sisterly lunch when I swung through Chicago for work. I've never felt this alive. I nodded, forcing a smile while guilt clawed at my gut. Just don't rush it, I warned, knowing she'd brush it off. You sound just like Dad, she giggled. Christopher and I? We're soulmates. We get each other. Oh, that hit closer to home than she realized, but not in the glowing way she imagined. By the 4-month mark, cracks started snaking through Stephanie's world. Our weekly chats dwindled to almost nothing. When we did connect, her voice drifted, her gushing about Christopher faded, even as she swore everything was flawless. Mom spilled that Stephanie had ditched their sacred Sunday dinners, always with some flimsy last-second excuse. She's just lost in that new beau, Mom cooed in her ever-forgiving tone, the one she'd always saved for Stephanie's antics. Young love, you remember how it sweeps you away. But I spotted the shadows. Isolation creeping in, the first step toward total domination. Christopher was slyly cutting her off from everyone who cared, a textbook move from abusers I'd read about. I dug deep into this stuff but never dreamed it'd spiral this bad. 5 months deep, in one of our scarce talks, Stephanie let slip she'd ghosted her tightest friends. They just don't get Christopher, she mumbled evasively. They call him controlling 'cause he prefers things done right. What kind of right? I probed, heart pounding. You know, he points out if my outfit's too skimpy or if I chat too long with other guys. He's protective, not possessive. She clung to that line like a lifeline, so I held back. But dread twisted tighter inside me. At the 6-month threshold, Mom's frantic call shattered the night. Did you hear? Stephanie poured cash into Christopher's big business push. He's scaling up his consulting gig and hunted for backers. How much? I shot back, adrenaline surging. She clammed up, but Dad figures it's most of her nest egg, at least $30,000. The number slammed me like a gut punch. Stephanie, the queen of frugality who'd scrimped since her teen job, handing over her future without a whisper to anyone? This reeked of deeper mind games than I'd bargained for. I dialed her on the spot, but she dodged. 3 agonizing days later, she called back, defenses up like walls. Mom should butt out, she barked before I could speak. And you too. It's a solid investment. Christopher's got clients waiting. Did a lawyer vet the docs? I pressed. I don't need some suit to trust my man, she fired back. Not everyone's paranoid like you, Amanda. The line went dead, leaving me reeling, worry gnawing deeper. What I'd plotted as a mild heartbreak was mutating into ruin. I'd aimed for a lesson, not her getting fleeced by a slick fraud. 7 months in, the whole mess exploded like a bomb. I was crashing in Boston when Stephanie's call hit at 2 a.m. Her voice shredded from sobs, barely human. He's vanished, she blurted. Christopher's gone, and my money with him. I bolted upright, sleep vaporized. What the hell happened? It poured out in jagged shards. Over those last months, his grip had tightened like a noose, snooping her phone obsessively, ripping her outfits and pals apart, inventing insane loyalty tests she jumped through blindly. After the initial investment, he'd begged for more loans, and she'd forked them over, hooked on his dreams and his lies. Then poof, he ghosted. Apartment gutted. Phone dead. Socials nuked. That business address? A fake mail drop, now shuttered. I begged the bank, but it's hopeless, she wailed. Gone. Nearly $40,000, Amanda. My whole damn savings. Even I reeled from his scam savagery. I'd clocked him as a selfish jerk, sure, but not this cold-blooded crook. My scheme had snowballed into chaos I never saw coming. I'll catch the first flight out, I vowed, fingers flying over my laptop for tickets. When I stormed into her apartment the next day, she was a ghost of herself. My bold, sparkling sister now gaunt-eyed and shrunken, shuffling like she'd aged decades. The place mirrored her wreck. Dishes rotting in the sink, clothes hurled everywhere. I should have spotted it, she whispered at the kitchen table. Red flags screaming. Manipulators are masters at camouflage, I murmured, the hypocrisy burning my throat. Then came her gut-wrenching confession that floored me. Christopher's mind games had plunged darker than I'd glimpsed or feared. He'd chipped away at her spirit, swinging from over-the-top adoration to brutal takedowns, leaving her on edge, never knowing which version she'd get. He'd banished friends who dared question, spinning tales that they envied their perfect love. He'd woven fake epics about his ventures, backed by phony papers and glowing client raves. Worst of all, he'd weaponized her past, my stolen boyfriends, against her, accusing her of eyeing his buddies, branding her as eternally untrustworthy. He'd hiss, once a thief, always a thief, she choked, glaring at her stale coffee. Said I'd poached other women's guys, so he'd never truly believe in me. She lifted her tear-streaked gaze. He knew about Daniel, Jake, Ethan, every dirty detail of our feud. The truth crashed over me like a wave. I'd armed him with those secrets in our early chats, never guessing he'd twist them into torture. My face must have betrayed the horror, because she grabbed my hand. I'm so sorry, Amanda, for all of it, every guy I took, every stab I gave you. I get the betrayal now, the gut-wrench. The long-craved apology landed like ashes, stirring only my own shame. Before I could choke out a word, Stephanie pressed on, her voice cracking. The worst part wasn't the cash, it was the venom he spewed. The way he shredded my soul, making me believe I was trash, that I had it coming because of how I'd wrecked your world. As her words hung in the air, it dawned on me like a thunderclap. My revenge had backfired spectacularly, far beyond my wildest nightmares. I'd craved for Stephanie to taste rejection, to writhe in betrayal's grip like I had. But instead, I'd thrown her to a shark who methodically stripped her of her dignity and her hard-earned fortune. The bomb of my involvement detonated 3 days later when our parents stormed in to kickstart her financial salvage operation. Huddled in her living room, poring over police forms and bank printouts, Dad dropped the hammer I'd feared. How do you even cross paths with this Christopher creep? Before I could spin some foggy dodge, Stephanie jumped in. Amanda hooked us up. She bumped into him at a marketing summit. Mom and Dad whipped their heads my way, twin masks of stunned disbelief. Blood rushed from my cheeks as Stephanie pressed on. Come to think of it, that was off, right? You never play matchmaker with dudes you meet. But you pushed him hard on me. The room turned tomb silent, 3 stares drilling into me, suspicions igniting. I could have weaseled out, sworn it was a harmless intro, that I'd been clueless about his rotten core, but the lies were crushing me alive. I knew, I whispered. Not about the theft or how deep it had cut, but I knew he was poison. I set you up on purpose. Stephanie's face blanked out in pure shock. What the hell are you saying? I wanted you to feel it. I spilled, the floodgates bursting. The knife of trust shattered, something vital ripped away. Like you did to me, time after time. Dad shot to his feet, face blazing red with fury. Amanda, what in God's name have you unleashed? Mom dissolved into quiet, choking sobs that echoed in the void as Stephanie gaped at me, frozen. I didn't see the money grab coming, I pleaded, voice cracking. I didn't dream he'd scar you this bad. I just needed you to live my hell, just once. Get out. Stephanie's tone was dead, void of fire. Get the hell out of my place. I stumbled away in a fog of humiliation, Dad's scorching disapproval and Mom's weeping trailing me like ghosts. Holed up in my hotel, I drowned alone in the monstrosity I'd birthed. Chasing payback, I'd morphed into a monster worse than Stephanie ever dreamed. She'd snagged boyfriends, guys who ditched me willingly in her web. But me? I'd cold-bloodedly fed her to a wolf I sensed would maul her. Blind to the fallout. The weeks that followed were pure exile. Parents went radio silent, doling out curt texts at best. Distant kin fed scraps of the saga, bombarded me with appalled notes and letdowns. Even Grandma, who'd accidentally sown my vendetta seed, rang up heavy-hearted. This ain't the fallout I preached, Amanda, she sighed. Some boundaries stay sacred, no matter the grudge. I dragged back to Boston lugging guilt like chains, seeping into every corner of my existence. I bailed on work with a leave, my marketing mojo shattered. How could I hawk dreams when I'd weaponized them to gut my own blood? I ghosted friends, trapped in gloom I couldn't confess without bearing my sins. For the first time, crystal clear, I grasped that vengeance hadn't mended my scars. It had gouged fresh ones, raw and more agonizing. In schooling Stephanie on treachery, I'd sold out my soul and every shred of my identity. 2 months crawled by with zero from Stephanie. Apology texts vanished into the void. Voicemails echoed unanswered. Parents kept it bare bones, their letdown slicing through even chit-chat on holidays or family buzz. I dove back into therapy raw and real, unloading the full nightmare I'd orchestrated. My shrink didn't damn or pardon me, just mapped the rot. The festering grudge that birthed this alien rage. You've hauled this agony for over a decade, she noted. Unseen by your clan, unresolved. Smothered hurt like that erupts in shadows we don't spot in the mirror. No free pass but a lens to decode it. I'd played the saintly sis forever, forgiving, rising above. Yet under that mask, the gashes had poisoned, ignored and raw. After 3 months of dead air, I snapped. If Stephanie stonewalled calls and messages, I'd invade Chicago and face her head-on. I owed her a gut-level sorry, not for my absolution, but because she earned it raw. Forgiveness? Her call. But damn it, I'd fight for the shot. I jetted to Chicago that Friday dawn, beelining for her office, betting she'd dodge less in work mode. Her events firm squatted in a revamped factory. Raw brick walls, massive panes letting light flood in. I paced the lobby, pulse thundering till she strode out from a huddle. She halted dead, her work grin crumbling. What are you doing here? We gotta talk, I said flat. 15 minutes, tops. She wavered, clocked her watch. Lunch in an hour. Cafe 2 blocks over. Be there. That wait dragged like eternity. I prowled the streets, scripting my plea, knowing no lines could capture my remorse's abyss. Stephanie showed bang on time, snagged a coffee, and perched opposite with stiff poise. She looked sharper than last, her spark flickering back, though exhaustion lurked in her gaze. I'm sorry, I launched, no fluff, no shields. What I pulled is beyond redemption. I was so locked on my hurt, I ignored the wreckage I'd cause. Never meant for real pain or your wallet gutted. She eyed me long and hard. But you did crave my suffering, my betrayal's sting. I nodded, owning the ugly. Yeah, I needed you to get how it crushed me every damn time. To face what you'd inflicted. I knew, she murmured. Always knew I was carving you up. Just didn't give a damn to quit. Her bluntness floored me. First time she'd owned the vicious cycle that poisoned us for ages. Why? I demanded, the ghost question of years. Why keep twisting the knife? Stephanie stared into her cooling brew. Been grilling myself in sessions these months. She inhaled sharp. Easy version, envy. Deeper cut. I never measured up. Not next to you. Me. I blurted, disbelief slamming hard. You were always the golden child, the one they truly cherished. I was the indulged one, she shot back, correcting me sharp. Not the one they respected. You were the brainy one, the dependable rock, the moral beacon with a glittering path ahead. Me? Just the pretty face with the charm. The one craving constant coddling. She locked eyes with me then. Snatching your boyfriends, that was my twisted proof I could outshine you, that I could claim a win in something that cut deep. The bombshell left me reeling. For years, I'd filtered our bond through my own shattered insecurities, blind to how Stephanie might have been drowning in an even blacker pit of self-doubt. It doesn't wipe away my sins, she pressed on. But Christopher, he drilled into me the raw agony of betrayal by someone you bared your soul to. Heart pulverized, self-belief in ruins all at once. She pierced me with that stare. Nobody earns that hell. Not even me. Especially not you. I fired back, every word laced with truth. What I unleashed crossed an unforgivable chasm, turning another soul into my blade. I twisted into a monster I swore I'd never become. Stephanie dipped her head in slow agreement. We've carved each other up pretty bad, haven't we? That raw admission, the first time our shared guilt echoed out loud, cracked open a gateway I'd figured was sealed forever. Can we start over? I ventured, voice trembling. Not erasing the scars or faking amnesia, but forging a fresh road. I'm not sure, she leveled honestly. But damn it, I want to give it a shot. That tense lunch sparked a string of wary reunions. We drew lines we'd never bothered with before. No spilling about lovers at first. No family huddles till trust's bedrock solidified. Constant pulse checks on our raw nerves. A seismic shift from our eternal grave of festering grudges and silent wars. I threw myself into guiding Stephanie through the legal maze to claw back her cash, tapping work ties to snag a fraud-busting lawyer. In the end, she salvaged roughly a quarter of the loot, a slim triumph that sparked a flicker in her shattered self-trust. Our folks flailed against our reborn vibe. They'd fueled our toxic tango for ages, and now these sturdy walls and bare truth talks had them adrift. Mom especially bristled at our defiance of the old sweep it under creed. Why dredge up ancient dirt? She griped at a stiff family supper 6 months post-showdown. Can't we just charge ahead? Stephanie and I swapped a glance charged with fresh alliance. We are charging ahead, she countered, but with eyes wide open this round. Inch by inch over that grueling year, we reconstructed us from ashes. Not the scrappy kids scrabbling for dominance or the adult foes locked in combat, but 2 battle-scarred women bonded by ghosts, hungry to unmask our true selves. I uncovered Stephanie's buried yen to pin kids' tails. A flighty whim she'd shelved next to my no-nonsense hustle. She unearthed my secret fire for city greens, worlds apart from my job mask. We peeled back layers long buried under rivalry's rubble. Mending wasn't a straight shot. Stumbles hit hard, old habits clawing back, betrayal's ghosts crushing us down. Gut-wrenching talks on our kid days, our parents' hand in breeding the beast, how we'd each been warped by our self-made storm. Yet breakthroughs pierced through. Our first real belly laugh, pure and rivalry-free. The debut stand where we shielded each other from folks' bids to rewind the clock. The moment I bared a budding romance without bracing for sabotage. 2 years post-Christopher nightmare, Stephanie uprooted to Boston for a clean slate, snagging an events gig there. Not to crowd you, she stressed, but not fleeing either. We were mastering a shared space without apocalyptic crashes. Now, facing her over our ritual Sunday brunch, the odyssey blows my mind. This vibrant woman spilling her newest gig thrill. She's my lifelong sis and a total stranger reborn. Someone I'm decoding layer by layer, rebuilding faith in, learning to cherish without chains. This trek's been agony unbound, riddled with double-edged stabs. Hooking her up with Christopher? A soul stain I'll drag eternally. But from that abyss surged the brutal truth, telling our bond screamed for across decades. Real mending I've grasped, skips vengeance or denial's veil. It demands owning the carnage full throttle, claiming your dirt, and grinding daily to raise hope from wreckage. Stephanie spots my stare, quirks a brow. What's got you zoned so deep? Just the miles we've conquered, I confess raw. She beams, a soul-deep grin eclipsing her old fake gloss. Plenty more ahead. And she's spot on, nurturing this tender thread's endless labor. But for once, we're striding it shoulder to shoulder, ditching the venomous race. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone close to you? And if so, how did you handle it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible even after the deepest betrayals. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most meaningful destinations.